Hey, it's JJ Virgin, and welcome to the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show, where we'll connect with some of the coolest people in the world. Plus, I give you tips that you can put into fast action to uplevel your health and your life. Now, today's show is all about simple things you can do. I like to say the little hinges swing big doors. So it's all about the little things that you can do that add up to big shifts over time. And I have the Untitled Doctor on with me today. He is the perfect blend of East meets West. He grew up, his childhood was in India, and then he moved to the U.S. So he's had the opportunity to grow up with meditation and yoga as his normal. He's kind of looking around now when all of us are like, oh my gosh, this new age thing. And we'll talk more about that. But then also going to medical school here and learning Western medicine and just bringing it all together. We're going to talk mindfulness today, how to really be present, the impact that can have on your health, all sorts of cool stuff. So let me tell you a little bit about who I've got on. My new buddy, Dr. Partha Nandi. He is a practicing physician, international speaker, and host of the internationally syndicated medical lifestyle show, Ask Dr. Nandi. Very cool show. I'm looking forward to being on soon. You definitely want to dial into that because he is all about just kind of a no-nonsense approach. But it's no nonsense coming from, again, the perspective of bringing in spirituality, mindfulness, and community, all the things that I've been really deep diving into over the last year as I've been working on the miracle mindset. So as he's been saying all this, I was just like cheering in the background going, yes, more science to back up all of the things that I was just using intuitively when I was in the hospital with my son, Grant. All right, so I am excited to introduce Dr. Partha Nandi. All right, let's do it. Dr. Partha Nandi, welcome to the show. I am so glad to have you here today.
Hey, thanks for having me, JJ. I really appreciate it.
Well, let's dive into what you call yourself, because you're known as the Undiet Doctor. What the heck is that, Partha?
So what I think is there's a lot of people that fail, and you know this, that when they get into a diet, they've got great intentions, but they fail. They just can't sustain it. So what I try to say is, listen, you know what? I like to call myself the Undiet Doctor, meaning that let's get some simple principles and ideas that you can follow instead of saying, I've got to take a teaspoon of this, put it in that, and then wait for it to boil, all this stuff. That there's so many diets out there that people, it's difficult for them to put their head or even their brain around, So I think that telling them some simple principles that they can follow, not just, after the holidays, but all year round. That's the idea behind being the Undiet Doctor. Talk about things that you can do easily and not to just talk about a diet, quote unquote.
That will make a big difference. I love little things that make a big difference. So your whole background's interesting because you're obviously Dr. Partha Nandi. Now, you're not Joe Smith. So you've got a background of being. Now, where are you from? You're not from India, right?
Well, I was born there. I came when I was 9, and then I did, all my education here, like my middle school, et cetera. And then I've been here ever since.
All right, because I've got another buddy. He's like, "No, I'm from New Jersey." I'm like, "Oh, okay." But he spent.
Well, I was lucky, JJ, that a lot of things I talk about, with East meets West, is that I remember when I was a kid that I could remember some of the things that people in India did and that affected me. I was just old enough to remember that stuff. For example, my parents always meditated, so it wasn't weird and this new age thing for me. It was part of my life ever since I can remember. Right? They meditated, they prayed. Spirituality was a huge part of my life. And why that's important now is because patients come to me and say, I especially this time of year, they say, I don't know what to do. I do internal medicine and gastroenterology, so they've got all kinds of issues that are coming up because they have a physical problem and stress makes it worse. So they ask, what pill can you give me? Can you give me something to take the edge off? What I tell them is, say, listen, Joe or Mary, something that's going to be a little bit weird to hear from a practicing doctor is that have you ever thought about yoga? Have you thought about meditation? Because when you do that, you take away some of that stress and what we call the adrenergic tone or all those hormones that are released that drive your body nuts. And then they ask me more, and I tell them, listen, I do a television show called Ask Dr. Nandi, and I also do the health news on ABC in Detroit. And we actually did a meditation, a mobile meditation unit to one of the toughest precincts in Detroit, the Detroit Police Department. And we took the meditation unit, the mobile unit there, and we had officers go in and actually on their lunch break do meditation. Within 5 minutes, their heart rate and their blood pressure was down. So and imagine doing that over time. I tell my patients that instead of saying, can I have a little bit more Valium? Can I have a little bit more Xanax or whatever it is that they think that will help them? I go back to some of my roots, which is spirituality. My mom and my dad did that for forever. So that's why it's important that I was old enough to remember some of that stuff. I remember people doing yoga. I remember some of the Ayurvedic medicine that people talk about now and Eastern medicine. It was part of people that are around me. And so it's important. When I was actually 6 years old, I had rheumatic fever, and I had an Ayurvedic doctor that tried to help me. So I was intimately, involved in some of this stuff. And not everything works, but that memory still stayed. And it helps me in my practice today. It helps me in what I talk about in the show. It was really important for me.
Well, not everything works in general, so
You're absolutely right.
But I mean, what
absolutely
you just
right.
described with meditation, if that was a drug, would be the most popular drug on the planet. So it's always
That's
kind of
exactly right.
interesting. You hear someone coming in, they want a Xanax that'll help them in like 20 minutes, and they could just meditate and get the same effect in 5,
Right.
and they
That's
didn't have to
exactly right.
spend any money. So you hinted at them, so I'm going to make sure we talk about them. You said you had some simple ideas, simple things that
Yeah.
could make a big difference. So I definitely want to get our listeners a couple of those.
People talk about, I want to make a huge change in my diet. I want to lose, 15 pounds, 20 pounds, and all this. They have all these goals or want to fit in the dress. So I tell them a simple change: eat until you're about 3/4 full. The Okinawans do this. They just say, you know what, I want to eat until I'm not quite full, but just about 3/4. This is a simple thing to do, but it's really difficult to adhere to. Meaning that you can do it once or twice, but we're kind of accustomed in our part of the world that if you don't supersize something, it ain't right. That you didn't get your money's worth, right? So if you go to a buffet and you don't finish the entire freaking place, that you don't have your money's worth. So it's a simple thing, but to do it on a systematic basis is gonna be difficult. But if you do that simple thing, eat until you're about 3/4 full, meaning that your brain, it takes it a little while to catch up to your stomach. By the time you know you're full, it's a little too late, because what happens is then you feel bloated, and I'm sure you hear this too because you do the same. You do this lots of advice and expertise in this field. But people say, I feel uncomfortable and horrible. So I tell them, just do that one thing, and that'll help you to actually lose weight and feel better. The second thing about, for example, with exercise, they go, doc, I want to do it. I want to, get motivated and fit, and I can't do it. And what I tell them is that, listen, even if you can do 5 minutes a day, because you want to start simple, right? If you can do 5 minutes a day of anything, just move. Don't pick a particular exercise. You don't have to do CrossFit. You don't have to lift 500 pounds. You don't have to run around the planet. Just do anything for 5 minutes besides get on the couch. And that's a start. If we do that, then that'll get you to get in the process of being fit, because then once you get 5 minutes, you can do 10, etc. And then lastly, I tell them, another simple thing I can tell your audience is that have purpose in your life. And what that means, I tell them, listen, when you are doing something, find out why you're doing it, and if it's worthwhile, if it fits your goals. Meaning that find out what makes you happy, and then go backwards and say, is most of what I'm doing making that process occur? Meaning making what I want to be happy occur. So listen, all of us do things that we don't always enjoy. It doesn't mean that 100% of the time, but the majority of your activities going towards that goal. And if you have purpose in your life, then I think that makes a tremendous difference. Not only just making you feel good, which is the intuitive response, but now science shows that you actually live up to 6 to 7 years longer. And Dan Bettner, in his landmark, studies showed that, and many other people have shown that if you have purpose in your life.
So do you have trouble, though? Do you have challenge with people coming in and you say this to them and they have no clue where to even start with that? Like, even if you ask the simple question of, what are you doing every day for fun, they look at you like you might be a little bit crazy.
Crazy. Right. So what I
So,
tell them is that I tell them write it down. I said, listen, you know what? I tell them this is not an easy thing. It's not like you just sit down one day and it takes 2 minutes and you're done. What I tell them is write it down. It may take you a week to write down exactly what things make you happy, but in general, when I'm seeing them in the medical practice, they usually have a symptom, right? They usually have something. They don't come to see me and say, hey, how you doing? And go out. They usually have a problem. So I tell them, listen, you have this problem. Let's Besides the medical problem, what do you think is causing some of these issues? And I get them to understand that there's more to their problem than just the physical ailment. Once I get them there, to me, it's always about the motivation, right? So you got to have a reason to do something. Meaning, if you're just having the greatest time of your life, typically you're like, I don't need any help. But most people have stuff that's going on in their life that they want to change. And so I use that as a motivation for them to use their brain and get some effort into doing what they're doing. And then it's not a one-time process. You have to follow up. You have to follow up and say, okay, what if I've done this? What happens a week later? What happens a month later? And I help them with that. I help them start writing down goals and get diaries so that they can figure out what they're doing and if they're actually following up. Again, just like you point out, nothing really works 100%, but it's a start. And if you make some of these simple changes, any one of those three can impact your life.
but what I'm hearing from you, and I'm just digging it because it's so much of what I've been teaching, is journaling is key. Getting really in touch with the purpose and the why behind things are so key because, as you can see out here, we don't have a shortage of strategies. Like, I don't believe the real issue with people being so sick now and unhealthy is because of lack of strategy. So what do you see as like the biggest hurdle? Like when patients are coming to you, what's the big block or the big hurdle? Is it not having purpose? What is it?
They feel like there's a Mount Everest in front of them. Instead of taking little chunks, most people, by the time they see you, they're 50 pounds overweight, not just 5. So they see a huge mountain in front of them and they feel like, this is something I cannot overcome. So I think once you break it down and say, listen, you start off with one day at a time, 5 minutes if you can, just a little bit less. Don't add sugar, maybe once a day instead of, don't add sugar at all. So if you break it down for them, I think that you take away that huge mountain. So I think one of the biggest problems that people feel like it's something that they cannot fix. And some of the solutions that are given, I agree with you. There's not a shortage of strategies, but most of them are pretty complicated. And most of them are given in such a way that they can't really sustain it. So I think that one of the biggest obstacles they have, besides the people that don't have access to healthcare, there's a big problem there. But assuming that you have access to healthcare and you have access to see people like me and yourself, they feel like, it's a mountain and I can't do it. And I'm just not even going to start. If I can convince them that just making that first step, it's huge. And if I can convince them of that, I think I've done a great service for them, including myself.
Well, in everything you're doing, going on TV, everything you're doing on Facebook is providing the information. So what's been fantastic out here is, people might not be able to get to see you, but they can still get that information. That's what the internet has really done for all of us, is it's just been an equalizer so that everyone has access to the information. So it's really now about someone deciding that they are going to make the littlest change and build on it every single day. Just that
exactly
simple
right.
thing.
Exactly.
Yes. Now I'm going to throw a curveball at you too, but let's turn it on to you. And what I want to know is what you do every day. Like, what is that thing? Let's just pick one that you do every day that you feel makes the biggest difference in your life.
I really think meditating. I don't always do it for 30 minutes a day, but no matter where I am, even if I'm traveling around the world, I take 5 minutes and I do a couple things. I breathe. I stop and I breathe, and I just take a breath and get perspective of what's going on, and then I just spend at least 5 minutes trying to just reflect on that, and that helps me tremendously. But otherwise, it's a whirlwind, and as better than most is that you can get caught up in all the stuff you're doing and forget about what it's all about. And so I take about at least 5 minutes, sometimes more if I have it, just to reflect and breathe and try to make center myself, to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that, I call that meditation for me. And that helps me tremendously every single day.
Awesome. And I know you've got something for everybody. You've got your ebook on mindfulness. Tell us a little bit about that. I'm going to tell everyone how to grab it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think mindfulness has been something that's used for, centuries, but now professional athletes and teams are using it to try to focus on getting the best out of someone. For example, if you're a star pitcher and you are trying to pitch in the American League Championship Series, and you think about, hey, what if I don't make that pitch? Well, you're not going to pitch well. So the idea behind mindfulness to me is staying in the moment and understanding the importance of that moment and doing the best you can with that moment. And the striking thing to me is not worrying about the consequences. So a lot of times, we are success driven and we want to perform. So I think for mindfulness, you take that step out. It's like you just say, this is the moment, let me live it. For example, I'm talking to you. I'm not thinking about what's going to happen afterwards. I'm not thinking about what happened before. I'm just saying, okay, I'm talking to JJ. I want to be able to let her listeners know this is what it's all about. And it's not so important how successful I am at doing it. It's just taking that moment and making the best out of it. And so that to me is mindfulness. And that can really change your life, whether it's you want to be a better performer, whether you want to have better outcomes for your health. Because guess what? When you have that statement that you're in the moment and you're not worried about all the outcomes and what comes before and after, your stress level and all those hormones that are ravaging your body actually go down a little bit. And so that's why I think it's important. And we talk about it a little bit more in our ebook. And I think also we put purpose along with the mindfulness there, how purpose can be incorporated in mindfulness to achieve the goals that you want in your life and in your health to achieve wellness.
That is excellent. So it's like being present means finding purpose, which is
exactly.
Perfect
That's
duo.
Exactly right. That's
yeah,
exactly
well,
right.
That is one of the biggest challenges I see out there was for me too, was just being able to be present, not so focused on the future, which makes you anxious or looking back and getting depressed. And it is, you sit in the present and you get unattached to these outcomes. Otherwise, you're always chasing the next big thing. It can make you nuts. So thank you so much for being here. I want to let everyone know how to grab that. And to get that ebook by Dr. Partha Nandi, you're going to go to jjvirgin.com/Dr. Nandi. And that is spelled Nandi, Nandi. So DRNANDI. And that will be in the show notes as well. And thank you so much, Dr. Nandi, for being with me today. I so appreciate it.
It was a blast, AJ. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, after the break, I'll be answering a listener's question, so stay with me.
Fact. The true cause of weight gain is not calories. It's food intolerance. A negative reaction to certain foods, even foods you thought were healthy, can lead to a variety of symptoms, including weight gain, acne, bloating, and lack of energy. The solution is simple. Avoid the foods your body doesn't tolerate. But which foods? That's the secret JJ reveals in her book, The Virgin Diet. Drop 7 foods, lose 7 pounds, just 7 days. Discover the sneaky 7 foods by visiting jjvirgin.com/books and be on your way to losing 7 pounds in 7 days.
Welcome back. This is the time where I answer a listener's question. And I've been getting a lot of these questions, by the way, off of my Facebook page. You can go to facebook.com/JJVirginOfficial and leave me a question there. Today's question, I always like to pick questions that go along super well with the topic that I'm talking about. So I saw this one from Barry in Huntsville, Alabama, and I had to bring this question up because she says, JJ, I want to get healthier and I just don't know where to start. What's the first thing that I should do? All right. I know sometimes I feel like they just write these questions for me. And thank you for that, Barry. So here's the thing. What's the one thing that you need to do? Well, again, what I was just talking about with Dr. Nandi is there's no shortage of strategies out there. You know, you might think I'm going to say, oh, start the day with a shake or go on the Virgin Diet or do the sugar impact diet or get bursting or go to sleep. And see, I just did it. And you're like, overwhelmed. There's actually something that needs to sit on top of all of that. And here's the thing. There are no shortage of strategies, but the bottom line is The reason you aren't where you want to be right now in your health, in your life, in your finances, your career, your relationships, any of those areas isn't a shortage of strategies. It's a limitation of your mindset. In fact, when I queried my community last year and I asked them, if you aren't where you want to be in your health right now, why not? And the biggest reason was a mindset issue. They didn't feel good enough. They didn't feel worthy. So the first thing that I want you to do is get a big why behind this. Get that big purpose in there. Because if that's in there, if you start working on that mindset, you'll dial in the strategies. Just like Dr. Nandi said, you start with one thing. Maybe it's starting the day with a shake. Maybe it's tracking 5 minutes of exercise. Maybe it's starting the day with gratitude. You start with one thing, get that dialed and go to the next. But above all of that is, if I want to get healthy, why? What does that look like? How will my life change? What will happen with my family, my relationships, my peers? What's going to happen with my career? What about my finances? Start to draw out that whole life and get that real strong why as to why you want to do this and the purpose behind all of that. Because, we were all put here to do big things. But you can't do big things if you're wiped out, exhausted, and in pain, right? So I always look at it and go, gosh, it's just, there's no reason anymore for health to be holding us back. The strategies are there. So the first step is knowing that you're worthy, that you've got a big purpose, figure out what that is, what's your why, then start with that one thing and build on those health habits every day. Alrighty, now again, if you'd like to submit a question, just pop over to my Facebook page, and that is JJ Virgin Official over at Facebook. And I have a favor. It would help me so much if you could jump on Stitcher or iTunes and leave a review for me. And while you're there, subscribe and share with your friends. It really helps a lot. I so appreciate it. All right, this is JJ Virgin signing off and reminding you to live courageously. Show up. Step up. You are stronger than you think.